Cincinnati Bengals in the AFC North. Where did they rank? What happened to my picture? I'm just a mess right now.
They were middle of the pack, 13th in the composite, and we gave them a B+.
Not for me.
Not for you.
A for me, the Bengals. Most important pick in the draft at number 80, Jermaine Burton.
Most important.
So the Bengals kick it off with Georgia tackle Amarius Mims at 18, Chris Jenkins, the defensive tackle out of Michigan in round 2. Round 3, wide receiver Jermaine Burton out of Alabama. And second, third rounder was McKinley Jackson, the defensive tackle out of Texas A&M. Other notable picks, cornerback Josh Newton out of TCU in round 5, and they doubled up at tight end with Eric All in round 4 from Iowa via Michigan, and Tanner McLaughlin from Arizona in round 6. A couple tight ends in there. Also like Matt Lee, the center from Miami, as a solid 7th round pick. What are your thoughts on the Bengals draft?
Yeah, I think it was a good draft. I mean, the Jermaine Burton thing is going to completely condition your output on this draft.
Sure will.
Amarius Mims, there were a few of these guys in the first round, guys that I think went to a really good situation for them. Amarius Mims, obviously the Bengals already have 900 pounds of Brown at tackle, the Brown brothers, Orlando and what's the other guy's name? Trent. There you go. Yeah, Trent. Orlando and Trent Brown. So they got 2 starters in Trent. They don't need Amarius Mims to start right away. He's not a project, but we just haven't seen that much from him, right? Limited tape.
By the way, so I was on the Locked On Bengals podcast yesterday, and I proposed your idea on the buffet.
Yeah.
He said Orlando would love to do that.
Okay.
He loves to do things like that.
Yeah.
And he seems to think that they seem to think that Mims would want to do that.
Let's go.
Now Trent's the wild card. He's
I would find it hard.
I might be eating dinner with him, so I'm not going to say anything. They don't know Trent yet.
Right.
So.
I would find it hard to believe, given Trent's size, that he's averse to that kind of thing. You know. Now
we're not paying for this or anything.
Oh God, no. Well, I mean, it's Fogo, right? How much? It's all you can eat. That's the benefit of this.
What is this on, Chris? This is for content. This is expensed.
I might be willing to pay for that if we could get it to work. If we could get the 4 of you people in the building and I'm allowed to film it, I might be willing to stump up the cash.
The key, though, is you're the 5th. You're with us.
Okay.
You have to buffet with us.
What's 5 Fogos? What's my bill?
A few hundred?
I could deal with that. I think that's worth it for the funnies.
$400.
Yeah. I think that's worth it for the comedy.
We could do that.
Now, obviously, we'd try and
I'll buy Orlando Brown dinner.
Right. Obviously,
we'd make it $20 million.
Yeah, obviously, we would try and expense it, but I would be willing to stump up the cash for that.
All right. So that's if anyone else could pull that off.
That's 4 times 6'8", right? If we're saying that you're, that's actually what you are.
6'10",
allegedly. So let's say 4 6'8". You are
290 something.
290x.
Between 290 and 300.
Then we've got 335, 345. And is Trent 355? They're 333, maybe it's 340 and 345. Anyway, there's a lot of human, all of whom are 6'8". Anyway, my point being, Amarius Mims, good situation. He can learn from the sideline, doesn't need to start right away, and is the obvious successor to Trent Brown after a year. I think it's probably also useful. This might be entirely projecting and making it up, but if you're 6'8", 335, it can't hurt being on a team with 2 other guys that are 6'8", 335 plus, who understand how to make it work at that size. You know what I mean?
Oh, there's definitely something to it, especially Orlando Brown and Trent Brown. I mean, Trent Brown played a little bit more guard than tackle in college at Florida. And Trent, as much as we challenge the idea that you want to have NFL players flipping from left and right side, Trent Brown's done it throughout his career and pretty successfully. And then Orlando Brown, if we remember his history, coming out of Oklahoma as a very productive player in one of the worst combines of all time, right? A vertical leap that was nothing and just a terrible combine. And he just goes out immediately. The Ravens steal him in the 3rd round, and he goes out and he's a good football player. And he's been a good football player both at left tackle and at right tackle for 3 different teams. For the Ravens, the Chiefs. Took a bit of a step back for the Bengals last year relative to the rest of his career, but he's played in 3 different teams, multiple systems, and had success. So I think there's definitely something to, hey, we have a similar body type. Here's some things that we've learned. So when I watch Mims, I see a guy who looks like a natural pass protector who just gets a little lungy, gets out over himself a little bit too much. And those are technique issues that I think for a guy that's only played 803 college snaps, that can be ironed out.
My neighbor on the street went out for dinner on draft night, and the hotel that they were hotel. I think they were eating dinner. Amarius Mims was there. Like that was where the Bengals had their draft guys, and he was like chatting away to Mims for 10 minutes or whatever. At the end of the day, like, so this is, the day's been done. Like, he's had his whole day of media and blah, blah, blah. He was still apparently in high spirits, loving life. Some guy had given him like a giant just collection of hats. Here's all your draft hats. Like, knock yourself out.
That's great.
I said he was a great guy.
Did he get his number? Because then we could
I don't think so, no.
We could set up the buffet.
No, that would have been good.
The other guys to highlight, I thought Chris Jenkins, really liked him in the second round. He had one of the best run stop percentages that we've seen since 2014, right up there with Leonard Williams and Quinnen Williams. The difference for Chris Jenkins, he's around 300 pounds. Remember, his dad was in that 330, 340 range, more of a hold the point nose tackle, but also a playmaker. Chris Jenkins is not that type of body, not that type of player. He's not a hold the point type of guy, but he moves. He knows how to shed blocks and make plays up and down the line of scrimmage. So again, it's more of a run game improvement for the Bengals. I think Chris Jenkins is he's a solid pass rusher, but that was what kept him away from being a Johnny Newton, a Byron Murphy II. But I really like Chris Jenkins as a player. And then I'll explain my Jermaine Burton takes here in a second, if you have something else.
No, go right ahead. So Jermaine Burton, the third round, number 80 overall, and you believe that this is the most important pick in the draft.
Most important pick in the draft, because I think Jermaine Burton's a first-round talent in wide receiver 4. I think he's the fourth best receiver behind the big three of Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze. I think Burton's vertical ability, his hands, his ability to get in and out of breaks. He did not have an opportunity to do it in the short area stuff a lot, but you've got the highlight reel play against Texas A&M where he takes a little in cut and runs through a couple defenders for a touchdown. I think Jermaine Burton can do it all on the field. Again, we repeated this a lot before the draft. Every question about Burton was off the field. Two different places, Georgia and Alabama. There were questions about there were character questions to the point where people had them off their boards. I think Mel Kiper didn't have him on his board at all, and we didn't know if he was going to go somewhere like he did in round 3. I think this was the highest I would expect a team to maybe take him, was like take a shot in the third round. After everything we heard about him, I more expected him to be like a round 6 or 7 guy. Somebody just takes a late shot on Jermaine Burton. But if you saw Zach Taylor in the draft room or in the press conference basically saying, he was really excited about getting Jermaine Burton. So I think given the Bengals situation, the discussion about T. Higgins, whether or not he's going to play out one more year, be a trade candidate, whatever it might be, Jermaine Burton, I think, has legitimate wide receiver 2 potential opposite Jamar Chase, either this year or in the future. And so if it's all three of those guys out there on the field at the same time, Burton has a vertical slot, Burton eventually taking over for Higgins, I think he has that type of talent. The way he works in the back shoulder game and his hands and his ability to adjust, I think is a perfect fit for Joe Burrow, and the way Burrow wants to take some chances down the field, which we need. I think the Bengals need more of that this year. And so I just think Burton's potential is unbelievable, and they got him at pick 80.
Yeah. I think terming it the most important pick in the draft is craziness. Caleb Williams is the most important pick of the draft. Michael Penix Jr. is apparently one of the most important picks of the draft.
Pound for pound.
But I will say,
pound for pound,
it has one of the highest upsides of any pick outside of, the quarterbacks picked and all those kinds of things. Like, the fact that the Bengals were willing to spend a third-round pick on Jermaine Burton with everything that is known about him, I think is actually a really strong endorsement of just how impressive he is on the field. Like, as you say, this is easily a guy that could have gone undrafted, or at the very late in the draft as just a last-minute flyer, 6th or 7th round, just to get him on board. To spend a third-round pick on a guy that you can't find anybody that has anything good to say about him, as in terms of character or in the locker room or whatever. Like that side of it is not even Nick Saban on the broadcast. His coach was like, he's got some problems. You know what I mean?
Did he say that? I didn't even know.
Jim Harbaugh is out here like talking up anybody that's ever been connected with the Michigan football program as the best player he's ever coached. Meanwhile, this guy's former coach is on the broadcast being like, he's gonna need some work. You know what I mean? So for him to go in the third round, I think is a real endorsement of how good they think he is. No, the Bengals have a track record of taking guys that have some concerns, so that makes sense. It's on brand for them. But I do think that this is a really good locker room for him to go into, right? It's got a clear, established leadership in terms of Joe Burrow, guys like Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. They don't need him to be an incredible contributor right away. It's not a locker room that's already in chaos or where there's leadership questions or there's sort of general attitude questions about it. It's got a very established, sensible, smart leadership already entrenched. So if it's going to work anywhere, it makes sense to work in Cincinnati. So I think it's as good a landing spot as he could have hoped to go to. Jermaine Burton, it's incredible upside from the Bengals, and then we just have to see. The dice has been rolled. We'll get to see if he can keep it together and stay there. Because I agree with you. Like number 4, I think it was a bit rich. I had him number 7 with a couple of giant asterisks next to it. And if he's on your board, he's ranked in the top 10. If he isn't, he's nowhere.
Yeah, and I view this pick. I mean, we'll talk about some of the drafts that have, or the trades that have been made. The way teams might throw around second and third round picks in trades.
Right.
I'm viewing this as the upside is immense, and okay, let's say it doesn't work out, and all the character concerns are true. It was pick 80. That's for me the payout of a potential round 1 receiver at pick 80, even if you get nothing from him, it's from a process standpoint, I like that.
Well, it's a great conversation, right? Like, would you rather package this type of pick to go and get yourself a second round player, or would you rather a different second round player and a gamble like Jermaine Burton? Like, that feels like a much better usage of a random mid-round draft pick than using it as trade collateral, right? To go and get a specific other guy.
Yeah.
Take the next guy on the board and get a guy like this. Like if that's what you value those mid-round picks as, they are throwaway things to be able to, use in negotiations or whatever, then gamble it away on the dude that could pay off huge. Gamble it away on somebody that is a gamble as a prospect instead of, moving from D-tackle 7 to 6 or whatever.
Right. So I love the Burton pick. We'll see how that all plays out. The one other guy I wanted to highlight, McKinley Jackson, the other third-round pick for the Bengals, big nose tackle type. I think he's got work to do before he becomes.
That's a pretty significant reach.
Yeah, I mean, there was a point in the draft process where I think people expected McKinley to go in this range, but
he was number 159 on the consensus board.
Yeah, workout wasn't great, and I just don't think he's a great football player right now as far as able to stack and shed and do what you want from your nose tackle. So to me, he's developmental, and it felt like a pick where the Bengals don't have this body type. They don't have a 330-pounder on their line, and they want to develop him as a nose tackle.
It's like it's another total gamble, but in a different way. Like they have just taken a dude that's 6 foot plus 300 or like 330 type pounds and is strong as hell. He plays like a bull in a china shop right now. He's just trying to run through whatever's in front of him, whether it's the player, whether it's the gap, just trying to get into the backfield using power and size and strength and whatever he can bring to the table. They are taking that skill set and saying, if we can develop him into something, then there's a player there. But right now it's a total gamble.